Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me today is my new friend, John. He and I had a little bit of technical difficulty trying to get the Zoom started, but we're here now and we can see each other and life is good. Welcome to the
Yeah.
podcast, John.
Oh, thanks, Jesse. I really appreciate it. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about yourself.
I've watched several of the podcasts, and people's influences are just all over the place. As you can see, I'm an aging baby boomer. Grew up, I was at exactly the right age when the Beatles came out. I was 14 years old, not quite 14. I was 13, so that was like my epiphany moment in music. And then I came from a large Irish Catholic family where everybody sang and danced and told stories. And I have 55 first cousins, and music was always in my family. As even as a kid, my father was a great singer, and I studied classical piano when I was a kid, and then ended up in rock music. Played in rock music, came very close to record deals several times, and then got that "we just have to pass"
Oh, no.
thing.
Well,
That yeah. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
no. I thought we'd start. Yeah, you talk about where did you grow up?
I grew up in Boston, actually in a place called South Boston, which has, if you live around here, it's got people love South Boston. It doesn't have a great reputation around the country for some of the stuff that has gone on there, but that's where I played a lot. Some of the rock clubs that were over there, and I'm sure you've heard of Whitey Bulger. He
Sure.
must have, yeah. I played at one of the clubs that he owned, and which was not. I had the good sense not to bring that or to engage in any conversation with him or ask him if he had any requests of the band, uh, which may have been to get in the car and go do a job or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, but then I grew up there, and
You mentioned your family. Did your parents love music?
yeah, it was a kind of a not like a show business family type of thing, but there was always some music going on in the house, all across the board. One of the things that was my mother was from Ireland. She picked up a lot of that Irish American music, the McNamara's band, that type of stuff. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I was about maybe in my late 40s that I was visiting Ireland and I actually heard the real Celtic music, and which was a huge eye opener for or ear opener for me. And that just sent me off in a completely different direction. When you hear the real thing, it's just amazing.
One of
So,
my
yeah.
favorite stories is we were in New Orleans and my son was a teenager and O'Flaherty's was a place where you could bring youngsters in. You could bring people underage. And it was a beautiful music room. And they had this huge sign that I wish every venue would have that explained the long tradition of giving reverence to musicians and that
Yeah,
how it
yeah.
was against the rules to talk. And it was this beautiful ornate wooden sign hand painted. And so we went in there and my wife enjoyed a couple of Guinnesses. My son and I both had sodas, and we just loved hearing Danny tell stories. We were just loving this. And a guy who'd had a little bit to drink called out for Danny Boy.
Ah,
And
yeah,
Danny went slightly angry, but very insistent to explain. And I did not know this at the time. The Danny Boy was an English poem that a guy
right.
put
Yeah,
to Celtic music. and
right.
and he talked about that true Irish balladers would not do that. He said there are some that do it, and he started like for the shillings, and so he says, and there's nothing wrong. I do Beatles songs. English songs are good, but yeah, love. Ever since then, I've loved the Celtic, just that long tradition of music and that happiness. And I loved when Bruce was the Live from Dublin and Wrecking
Yeah,
Ball and every stuff. There was
yeah,
that
yeah.
trait to that Celtic background, wasn't it?
Well, not only that, even more so than the tie-in with Ireland, the tradition that he comes from, the song storyteller tradition, which is very much influenced by, or I don't know if this is a direct influence on him, but he certainly is in that lineage of people who tell you a story with a song that you get a beginning, you get a middle, you get conflict, you get an
Yeah.
end. And that's not everybody does. Many people don't do that. You can just get a catchy tune, a hook, and then you're out of there. But this, he tells a long story in many songs.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, that
Yeah.
tradition, yeah.
Yeah, it does. So, along with Celtic music, what other music did you enjoy as you
Yeah,
were growing up?
I've been a real, I got to tell you, Jesse, I've been a real musical magpie. I went to Berkeley and studied piano, so I played jazz.
Oh,
And,
nice.
yeah, and worked, did a kind of a Billy Joel piano bar thing for a long time, not like Billy Joel. And I love Billy Joel. We may get onto that. Have you seen that book, The Tunnel Boys?
I have it on my nightstand waiting to be read.
Okay, I was
Yes.
going to bring it down and show it to you today. It's a great book in terms of if you being into Bruce and I have no idea what your feelings on Billy Joel are, but
No, I
you know,
love Billy Joel, and I was lucky enough to have the writer on the show.
oh, you did. Oh,
Yeah.
great.
So,
He does a great job at
yeah.
this moment in time when these two guys in the mid 70s come out of this metropolitan New York and but go in different directions. They take their talents in different directions. But yeah, played jazz, but loved rock music. That was my true love was
Mhm.
being in a good band that had good singers. I sang. I was usually a lead singer in a band. Loved three-part harmony songs and just yeah, just that feeling of being on stage. And this is where I get maybe a little bit of a feeling of what might go on. And we can talk about the times I've seen Bruce play, but just that wild abandon of being on stage when the music is right. It's
Yeah.
just there's no feeling like that in the world. It's a near religious experience for me. So
Did you know you always wanted to perform?
yeah, I think I'll tell you a funny story. I had a job at a supermarket when I was like 16 or 17. I played in a high school band,
Okay.
as most people that I'm sure many people on the show have played in high school bands. And I was at the supermarket. There was a lot of young women my age and stuff, and no one really paid much attention to me. I was just the guy who was the bagger boy or the getting the bringing in the carts from the outside, that type of thing. It wasn't like people were mean to me or anything. I was
Yeah.
just off in the corner. Then they were having a Christmas party. So I said, "Hey, geez, I got a band. Do you think I can play at the Christmas party?" And they said, "Sure, as long as you're not going to charge us any money, you can play at the Christmas party." And it was like one of those Cinderella moments. It was like, dear God, he plays in a band and he sings these songs. And we were doing one of the songs that was really big at the time was "Hold On, I'm Coming," the Sam and
Yeah.
Dave song. And
Yeah.
for the next 3 months, every time I would pass somebody that I worked with, they would start singing that song. Hold on, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I played through all the way through high school into college. And then I didn't really give much thought to getting like a daytime job in an office. This was back when you could actually make a decent living as a musician. You could make
Yeah.
a straight ahead middle class living. You weren't going to get rich, but you could make a middle class living. I ended up getting married, had a wife, two kids. My wife also worked, obviously, but yeah, I would make decent money playing in bands, make even more money if I was doing solo gigs, like solo piano bar
Yeah.
gigs. But then I had this bizarre thing happen to me where I was in the middle of singing "Every Breath You Take," the Police song,
Sure.
at a bar in South Boston, and I had a panic attack
Mm.
out of the clear blue. Just 1 minute I was there, and the next minute. And I don't know if you have any experience with folks who have had this, but this was not an anxiety attack. This was like I'm gonna die.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, things. I that basically stopped my music career in its tracks because I guess in a bizarre twist of fate, it the thing that would set off the panic the worst was being on stage. I had to, and I was working as this. I had a gig in Nashville as a songwriter. I had this band going. The band was doing well. We were writing original material that was getting published by different people and songs being recorded by other artists. and I had to stop. I had to change careers. And I don't know how far you want to go down that path, but I went into advertising for a short period of time, but then ultimately into ministry. I went to seminary and went into ministry, which is
Wow.
yeah, and spent the last 25 years as a pastor, where I get to play music.
What is the connection? Is it the spirituality
I
of
think,
music
yeah,
and the spirituality of doing that?
yeah, I think it is. I think my earliest associations with music were in this really terrific choir that I was singing in, and I would just float away because the music was so good. It just really had a profound emotional impact on me. Rock music did that to me. It's just you
Yeah.
playing you watch the people on stage who are playing, like somebody you go to and pick a concert. Those people, those people, unless they're really jaded, are probably in such a great state of mind. They're just taken away to another place as they're performing.
Hmm.
And that's what I always really enjoyed about music, that you could just disappear, go right inside it and just disappear. And that you can call that a spiritual, or I would not call it religious, because religious has connotations of doctrine and stuff like that. I consider it much more a spiritual type of thing. But absolutely, I know I'm not alone in that. There are many people who will speak to that more eloquently than I can.
Did what type of congregation? What kind of what
Well,
denomination?
I was raised as a Roman Catholic,
Okay.
but I jumped ship and went over to a congregational denomination because I was already married. I could not become a priest,
Yeah.
obviously. And yeah, so it's called the United Church of Christ around here. I think you might, you're out in where, Ohio?
I'm in Dallas, Texas. Yeah.
Oh, Dallas, Texas. Okay, it's
Yeah.
very close to Ohio. No, I'm just
Yes.
joking.
No, I
Okay, I'm not sure if the United Church of Christ is big in Texas, but it certainly is in
mhm.
Ohio and the
Yeah.
Midwest, that type of thing. And we're in New England. Yeah. And I was able to incorporate a lot of music into that. So that was a saving grace of that.
Do so I'm gonna step away though. I think I want to talk more about your spiritual journey because I know that says a lot about you. But I want to talk a little bit. When did you discover Bruce? And can you articulate why his music spoke to you?
Yeah. Okay, I actually got in on the ground floor, believe it or not. And I
Okay.
think, as I mentioned to you in one of our emails, I'm not sure if you picked up on this, but the first time I saw him, I'm not sure if I actually have the place right, but I'm pretty sure it was at Holy Cross College
Okay.
here in Worcester, Massachusetts. And the year would have been like early in 74 or somewhere around spring of 74. And the reason that I went was there was a friend of mine played in the band that was opening for him. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea. This guy
Yeah.
that I knew who was a bass player, a guy named Paul Socolo, went on to do many great things as a session player and that type of thing. He said, "You got to see this guy puts on a show that will just leave you soaking in sweat on the
Yeah.
floor." And coming from this guy who was very stingy with his compliments, this was somebody who did not pass out compliments lightly. I figured that this had to be something pretty magical. So I'm afraid to say the only two times I saw him were in 1974,
Okay.
in both times with this guy as the front band. They were just incredible experiences
Yeah.
of just pure. I mean, the spiritual, I think I can tie spirituality back into this. Just the energy that was not just on the stage, but that spread out into the crowd so that everybody was like of one mind in that
Yeah.
one place was just incredible. And then I have a funny story that happens after that.
Yeah.
I moved to New York in early 75 to play down in New York. I got a gig playing with Phoebe Snow, playing in her band. She was,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So I was playing piano in her band. And the woman who I ultimately married and I were on a break. This was before we were married. We had lived together up in Boston, then we had gone our separate ways. and we both ended up in New York. She was working in advertising in New York. I was playing in New York. And I walked, I went up to, we stayed friends during that period of time, obviously, because we ended up getting married. And I was trying to make it as a songwriter and as most flies to
Yeah.
moths to the flame going to New York. I remember she worked in media and she had the Newsweek and the Time magazine with the covers. And she said, boy, this
Yeah.
guy's really going to be a star. And I took it as she was like her taking a real dig at me. I have to say, have to
Yeah.
say. And it was like this guy was definitely made it. You're still scuffling around trying to figure out what the hell you're doing. And so that was my. I've always been a little bit jealous of Bruce as a result. As a, as a result of that, the fact that he could end up on two national publications,
Yeah.
was it the same week? I think it was the
Yeah,
same
it
week,
was
right?
exactly. It was the
Yeah.
first time ever that on the same week that they had covers that were the same artist, the same subject ever. I'm sure it's
And that
happened
would have been what?
since, but that was the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 75.
And that would have been like, yeah, October of 75 or September or October. Yeah. 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 So that was so I got in at the ground floor. Then I have only admired from afar. Still been a great fan.
Yeah.
One of my true joys has been playing some of his stuff in bands and just watching the crowd go crazy.
Sure.
Just you do something like Thunder Road or Born in the USA. That was like it was like setting off a bomb in the club you were playing at. You knew that people were just going to get up and go crazy. It was like rolling a hand grenade up stage.
I talk every once in a while to a fan, and I get how a heavy, passionate fan, Born in the USA, that album is for the casual fan. But I think
Right.
sometimes fans forget what a intro to that. It is the gateway CD album that
Yeah.
so many people learn through those hits, that so many songs, and then go on to discover his other music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is, yeah. I was
And
talking,
also,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Jesse. No, go
No,
ahead.
I was just saying, I was talking to the lead singer of the most popular Irish Springsteen cover band. I was talking to him last week, and he talked about that we you do your job. You've got to throw in the hits that the casual fan would know. Then you try to sneak in a few deep cuts that the diehard fans will go, man, I
Right.
can't believe you guys did that one for me.
Yeah, that's absolutely the secret. But I would say one more thing about it. Obviously, that's not going to be the song that I think either one of us goes to as the epitome of a career. But it it take it to write an anthem that is in everyone's mind is no small thing. Even if we have heard it many times, to be able to, like Queen with doing We Will Rock You,
Yeah.
simple, yes, repetitive, yes, all of those things. But at the same time, it does something. It gets inside people and makes them have a sort of a transformative experience together. So I just wanted to get that out there about that
No,
tune.
I'm glad you did. Mark Evanier is a writer that has worked in the industry, TV industry. He's written comic books, Garfield. He was the producer of the Garfield comic, the cartoon. He's just worked for everything. He was assistant to Jack Kirby. Just he's a well-known writer. And he said he was talking to friends and friends said, not true friends, but they were talking about that they were dismissing Barry Manilow,
Uh-huh. Okay.
that what he does is easy. It's easy. And Mark said, God, I admire your commitment to art so much that you are not doing some that easy that would make you millions of dollars because you have a higher regard for your art.
Yeah.
And it shut them up. It's like,
Yeah.
if it's that easy, then why isn't everyone doing it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a good friend of mine, a guy who is a very smart guy, whose opinion I respect. but our musical tastes diverge around 1976. He went
Okay.
off into the punk era and loved a bunch of bands that, and I was in New York at the same time and saw a lot of these people play, Patti Smith and all those people. And not to take anything away from it, it's just
Yeah.
not my favorite kind of music. It just is not where
Yeah.
my taste goes. But my taste does go to the really well-crafted pop song. To write a 3-minute well-crafted pop song
Yeah.
is a really hard thing to do. It
Yeah.
really is. And as you just said, if it was so easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah. I was in Nashville at the Country Music Hall of Fame, and they just a beautiful building and filled with so many.
Yep.
And one of them was it was on songwriting, and there was like a little kiosk, and they would show the handwritten lyrics, and then a little video screen you could push and hear the writer talk about it.
Yep.
And Tom T. Hall says, I love as an example of a song that will drive people crazy. I wrote it in 15 minutes. It became $1 million seller, and I have no
Yep.
idea where it came from.
Right. Yeah.
And the other story I love is Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller,
Yeah.
huge Dylan fan. And he says the thought is that Dylan's heart was broken. He opens his heart, his veins, and the albums just pour out, right? Just fully
Yeah.
formed, blood on the tracks, right?
Yeah.
He says, and then when you go to the Dylan archives in Tulsa and you see the notebooks of how he worked on every word and crafted it, and he
Yeah.
says they're both true. They're both true that he took all this work to do it and also that it flowed from him. And I just
Yeah.
think that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. They are, both of those things are true. And not to get off on this tangent, but
Yeah.
having spent time in Nashville myself, I mean, one of the things I really admire about country music is is its apparent simplicity. It looks simple on there's a guy named Travis Meadows. You ever come across him?
The name sounds familiar, but yeah.
He's definitely worth checking out if you have a chance. He has a song called Learning to Live Alone. And it sounds so simple on the surface, but every single, and the chord structure could not be more simple. It's just a
Yeah.
1 4 5, maybe a minor six or something in there. So it's that three chords and the truth, as they talk about.
Yeah.
And every single line you can tell is in there for maximum emotional
Yeah.
support of what's going on in the song. It sounds easy, but it is damn hard to do. And
Yeah.
as
A couple of years ago, they had a documentary running with our eyes closed about Jason Isbell.
Oh, sure. But yeah,
And
great
and
new
they
album out right
show,
now.
yeah, they show him and his wife at the time arguing over a pronoun, a verse. And he looks at the camera afterwards. He goes, if we were writing dance music, we would not have spent 30 minutes debating on that pronoun.
Yeah, he is a just an incredible writer. Incredible.
Yeah,
He's another one. Yeah.
yeah, he has something pretty good. John, what was the first, a couple questions. One, what was your first step into doing this professional? And when you talked about being able to make a living, but was there a moment when you said, yeah, I may not be on the cover of Time and Newsweek, but by God, I'm doing this and I'm a professional. Was there a moment?
I suppose there was a moment that's I've never really, believe it or not, no one has ever really asked me that question because as I mentioned before, I just played in college and then just didn't stop. I just did that. I think if there was a moment, it was probably when I moved to New York in early 75. And I would go to auditions with people, and there'd be some people who were just incredibly talented, doing all different kinds of things. You would go to these auditions, and there'd be jugglers and people on unicycles and comedians, but also singers. And I just knew in my heart of hearts that I could stand on stage with probably the top three of those people who were there that day.
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't sound in
No,
any way
no, it
conceited. No. It was just like, okay, you have the chops, you can sing, you got the chops. You're not getting up here and embarrassing yourself, and no shade cast on the other people who were there, but there was always going to be like keep your eye off of those two or three people who you knew were really good at what they did, and then you stole everything you possibly could from them.
yeah,
And
I absolutely know that feeling. I do not think I am an exceptional interviewer, but I think I'm pretty darn good. And there are
Mhm.
times when I will listen to a podcast and it is hard sometimes to turn the mind off and go, I would have done this a little bit different. Or, gosh, I wish I'd had the chance to talk to that person because egotistically, I think I could have gotten a little bit more. I think I could have gotten a more interesting conversation out of it. So I think
Yeah,
that confidence is what you need to be, right? You have to have that if you're going to get
yeah.
up there and juggle or tell jokes or play music.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think that what we're doing here right now, having a conversation, is not as easy maybe as people think it is. But just having you make me feel very relaxed and very comfortable. You bring out stories out of me, which, is not everyone can do that. That is a talent to be able
Thank
to
you.
bring
That
stories
I
out of
will
people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will take that compliment and I appreciate it. I often have people that are nervous and I'll go, no, no. I said, and that's why I always tell them, I'm like, hey, if you end up saying something you wish you hadn't said, because sometimes when it starts going, people forget we're being recorded. And they're just
That's
like,
right.
they're just talking to their buddy Jesse.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. 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 So far I haven't used an F-bomb, so I
There we go.
feel
Well,
we're
that's
doing
okay
pretty
if you do.
well.
See, if you don't mind, and I haven't finished your book yet, but I have started it. And talk a little bit about that road to Damascus moment that you share, where you decide maybe music is not your calling, and there may be, call it fate, call it God, call it nature, but something speaks to you that you have another purpose.
Yeah. I'm glad you used all of those words because and I should preface this, I am a very non-doctrinaire pastor. If you want to call it God, if you want to call it nature, if you want to call it the universe, I am perfectly at home with all of those things. I think that one of the chief arguments of the book is that we really can't know God, that we ascribe a lot of different of our things that we would like God to be, but it's just beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
We're shooting arrows at the moon as far as that goes. So I think you may be referring to the night that I was in the club and I go outside to smoke a cigarette and I realize that something's really wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, yeah, road to Damascus moment. I was probably like 32 years old there. I had been playing music since the time I was 16. So we're into like what, 4 and 10, 16 years. And half my life as a professional or semi-professional. I wasn't a professional musician in high school, but made money through college, made good money, went on the road, and that was big money back then. And just sitting there and trying to absorb that was, yeah, that was about, I think, as low as I have ever gone in the sense of or in feeling completely lost. I always knew what the next gig was going to be. I always knew what the next song that we were going to record in the studio was going to be. I always had a plan. And usually there's one guy in the band who has a plan, and the rest of the people can float along,
Yeah.
hoping that the plan's going to work. And I think that was the scariest thing of all. I had no idea what was going to happen. I knew that I was in serious trouble, that I was not going to be able to get back up on stage, or if I did, it was going to be in a really diminished role. And that just was not being in a diminished role was not going to work. Yeah, I think that was but those decisions really take time to seep into your being. You
Yeah.
think you get that in your head and you realize that in your head and you understand that in your head, but it takes a while for it to go from your brain and sink into your heart that, yeah, this is over. And I suppose it's a kind of an emotional death,
Yeah.
that you have to give up. You're giving up a personality that you knew. Yeah.
When you talk a little bit about, and not that it matters, but you've mentioned a little bit of, talk about who you've played with, and not, and I'm sure some of the people that you're most proud of are people that we may not know the name of, correct?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I'll immediately give a shout out to Leo Stapleton, who appears in the very beginning of the book with me, who the night that we almost get arrested
Yeah,
by the Boston police because there's cocaine in the car. Leo is to this day one of the most talented people I ever had a chance to play with. He was a great singer, great songwriter, really good guitarist, just had the whole package.
yeah,
I mentioned Phoebe Snow. She was an incredible talent. In the entire time I played with her, I never once heard her have a bad night.
wow,
Maybe nights that were like a little bit lower on the energy scale, but she had her voice was just the tricks that she could do with her voice. You would think at some point that something would have to go wrong, but nothing ever did go wrong. In that band was a guy named Arlen Roth, who was a great guitar player. He played with Paul Simon. He's played with Hall and Oates, just right down the line. The guys from Billy Joel's band, I knew those guys because Phoebe Snow was under the same management company as Billy Joel.
yeah.
Actually, he took her into that company, so I had a chance to jam with those guys before a gig, not
Oh,
play
how
with them on
fun
stage.
was that?
Oh, that was amazing. That was amazing. Yep. Liberty DeVito on drums. If you're ever going to be able to jam with somebody, there's a guy you want to be able to jam with.
Sounds like it.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So let's see. Jazz players, again, probably no one that there's Paul Socolow, who was a great bass player who went on to be Herbie Mann's musical director. So yeah, but a lot of these people there's just so many talented people
yeah,
in the music world. That never actually got to that point of being a household name or something like that. But that doesn't take anything away from their talent. There's some incredibly talented people.
yeah. What what did you what do you think you learned about yourself as you went through this musical journey?
Wow. Oh, that's a great question. I've Music has taught me, I think, probably the lesson that has shaped my life,
Yeah,
which is that there is a point at which you can get lost in something that you love and time will disappear. You will forget where you are. All you will know is the enjoyment of that particular period of time when your ego has gone. If we
yeah,
get into a little bit of, because that's what always happens at great concerts. It creates, people give up their ego. You're not thinking about where your car's parked when you're watching a great concert. You're not thinking about, am I hungry? I want a hot
no,
dog. You are there. You are right inside other people's minds. And I think that for us humans on this planet, that is the highest of all callings or the highest of all states that we can achieve. All religions try to get to that point. And sometimes get there, sometimes don't. All great musicians try to get to that point and probably do a better job at it than most pastors on Sunday, taking people to another place.
yeah,
I think it has taught me that is the highest state that we can know as human beings. It's also what love is. I don't want to get too mushy on us here. When you fall in love with somebody, that is exactly that same feeling. You're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about that other person. So I
yeah.
think that, are you kids? How many kids do you have, Jesse?
I have one adult son.
One
Yes.
adult son, yes. So I have a couple of kids, and were you there at his birth or?
Yes, I
Yeah.
was.
So talk about that experience. It's just, there's that experience, and then there's like everything else that happens underneath that. Those are just incredibly powerful experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, talk to me a little bit of how do you we obviously you sing at your services, But do you incorporate music into your theology and your preaching?
Yeah, I do. A lot of times I like taking pop songs, or
Yeah.
not necessarily pop songs, but most times there will be songs that people know. One of you talked about the Springsteen band, the Irish Springsteen band, which I get a big kick. What is their name, by the way? It's not Bruce by any chance, is it?
No, it's of course you're gonna let me get it now.
Just to
Yeah.
get to the I'm sorry, where were we going with that? That was
I was talking about how you weave music
oh yeah.
into, yeah.
So
Um,
you take a song like
the Human Touch, by the way, is their name.
the Human Touch. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Take a song like I'm actually closing, of all things, closing a church. And the churches are just doing terrible where we live here in New England. And I've actually closed, this would be the third church that I've closed, brought them to the point of this is, again, very similar. There's a cross reference here to music. You know, how music has become much more commodified now. You have
Yeah.
AI seeping into Spotify. I'm sure somebody's going to explode that Spotify story before too long that they're playing all their own music on some of
Yeah.
these stations, AI generated. But there is this, we passed through sometime around the year 1999 or 2000, passed
Yeah.
through to a different period of time where production took over, and now you have four or five people and writing songs. This is no disrespect there's always great music being written.
Yeah.
And the music that I love from the 70s and the 80s, that's great. But I'm not going to diss anybody who loves the music from today.
Right.
Their ears. I don't have those ears to hear that. So they're going to have to tell me. So I think, yeah, getting long way around. Take a song, the Paul Simon song, America.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm probably going to do that this Sun in a couple of weeks as part of the service because it's, if you go over the lyrics to it, it does have an air of politics to it, but it's much more about what the essence of America is. It's not
Yeah.
about you're on the wrong side or the right side of it's just about the, it talks about the good things about America and some of the not so good things about America, but it does it in a way that is respectful. So I think that I'm going to try to tie that in with this period of time and the closing of this church, that we're going through a change. There's the entire world is going through a change right now.
Yeah.
It's not just us. And so that's the type of thing. I can come in and play that on guitar and sing that, and that to me will be a spiritual experience. That song is so good.
Yeah.
The reason it's so good is he stole it from Bach. That's where the melody comes from. But he put brilliant lyrics to it. And so Paul Simon can do that, and I have no problem with him doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Share the name of the book and talk about what led you to wanting to share your story.
The name of the book is Honest to God, and the reason I wanted to share it is pretty much right in the title, that I had had a music career. I had about a dozen years working in the advertising business as a creative director. Fortunately, I was on the creative side and not on the bean counter side. And then about 25 years now as a pastor. And my concept of God became simpler and simpler over the course of time. You know,
Yeah.
you come out of seminary with you just filled with definitions. You have the answer to everything. Whatever
Yeah.
question anyone throws at you, you have the answer. And I think that it was to express to people how I felt inside. Even though I was including this stuff in sermons, I think that people really, I wasn't sure if they were really hearing what I was saying because they really probably weren't used to a pastor saying this, that we really can't know God, yet we can know empathy, we can know the feeling of compassion for, if I can just use just a quick Bible quote.
Please.
Okay, just in the Gospel of Matthew 25, I was naked and you gave me clothing, I was hungry and you gave me food. That type of thing. And I think that to be able to tell folks that I had gone on this journey through music and advertising and ministry, but I was really still the same person. I was still that there was a thread that ran through all of those things. I would like to think that the thread is some form of compassion, some form of love for that state that we were talking about, of just floating away
Yeah.
in a transcendent experience. And I don't mean that to be woo-woo or anything. We can all do that. When you put on a record at home,
Yeah.
you can do that. Yeah, you too can do this at home.
Yeah. And one of the things that, and I promise I won't go too far off, is my frustration with some of modern religion is they seem to not pay it there's too much politics in
Yes.
many of the religions. I had a wonderful pastor on, I think last year, and she talked about how the Bible was written by humans, by men, and you have to read it in context and you have to understand that there is much it can teach us, but it is not necessarily the right thing to say that every word in this book is given from God and I believe every word of it, because
Right.
and that's a very I grew up in a Southern Baptist home. I understand that kind of hyperbole, but the reality is, right, that there is did not think I'd quote Penn twice in the podcast, but he said I he says I love people that says, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Like he says, he's an atheist. I'm a very strong atheist,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I think your talk about when you mentioned the different spiritualities of what is God, he, she, it, we don't know. And so that's what faith comes from.
Yeah, yeah.
Eh,
I suspect I would have gotten along with the woman who was the pastor who
Yeah,
you saw, that we would have gotten along very well. I think that, yeah, I think that simply having a conversation like this to me is just such an enjoyable human experience. And
yeah,
those things, okay, I have no idea how many straight ahead, inerrant Bible believing people listen to your show.
yeah,
But I will say the Bible was written by humans, mostly
yeah,
by men. And some of that stuff got changed along the way. And so there's some stuff in there that's pretty difficult to explain.
yeah,
There's also some great teaching that we
yeah,
can still take advantage of no matter how we come at it. Yeah, I think
yeah.
that I'm glad to hear you say that.
My
So,
favorite story on a lighter note, there's plenty of things that if you want to get into a conflict and an anger, there's certainly things that, can be thrown against it. But on a lighthearted note, I always like to say that the prodigal son's brother, the other kid, had a point, right? Hey, Dad,
yeah,
I've been
yeah,
here.
that's
Who's
right. Yeah.
been
Hey,
taking
look at,
out the trash?
yeah, who's looking at, yeah, you're looking over here?
You
Yeah,
looking over
yeah,
here? I'm just saying, while he's out everywhere, I'm making sure that the errands get run and the things
right.
get done. And
I
I'm
may
just
have,
saying, you're a little love
I,
for me?
I may very well have preached on exactly that topic. Hey, pal, this is, yeah,
Yeah,
the guy
yeah,
goes away, spends all your money, comes back, and what do I get?
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm
Thank
just,
you.
and am I happy my brother's back? Absolutely. I'm just saying, I don't think he was totally wrong to say, hey, Pop, let's look over here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think you're right on the money there.
yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
haven't you done that you want to, John? What else is in the cards for you?
Let's see. What I would like to do is I would like to be able to take some time off.
Okay.
I've always been a driven person. I'm still producing, or not producing, I'm still putting out a song a week on Spotify in the piano world. I've got a Substack going. I can't figure out how to retire. I got to work on that.
Okay. Good. What should I've asked you that I haven't?
Oh, geez, let's see. I made a few notes. I think we have been all over the block here, Jesse. This is
I hope that's a good thing.
it is a good thing. Let me just tell you, I love Amy Grant. I
Oh,
do.
yes.
Oh, you do? Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're a secret club. I have this. Okay, this will become a surprise as a surprise. I hope it comes as a surprise. I have seen Amy Grant more than any other performer that I've that is playing.
All right. So now I know in a month or so, couple of months, we're going to have an Amy Grant episode. I'm going to have you come
Okay.
in and we're going to
I
talk
I,
about how
prob
you
I
discovered
probably could.
her, talk about some of her music. Okay.
Oh, good. Oh man. Yeah,
Good.
absolutely. She is. She's great. She's great. So.
Yeah. And yeah, her and Vince Gill, true power couple. So,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
no, Vince Gill is just he's got
Yeah.
talent to spare. Yeah, two of them. It's
All right.
amazing.
So I'm going to give
Yeah,
you in a minute. I'm going to let you have final words and how to reach you. But in the meantime, I end every podcast with what I call the Mary question. And if you're a fan of John's
yeah.
work or you're a member of his congregation and you're listening, thank you. Jay Armstrong was an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. And when he was teaching, he's now retired, but when he was teaching high school English, he would give his students the lyrics to Thunder Road. And they would read it, they would treat it as if it was a poem, and then he would ask his class at the end of the session, do you think Mary gets in the car? So, John, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Yes, Mary does get in the car, but she's not entirely. There will be one minor discussion as they are heading down the road. I don't know any woman who would let a guy get away with the line, "You're not a beauty, but you're just all right." That line is would sink most conversations right from the
Uh,
get-go.
there
But
is
yeah, I
a
think
heavy, go ahead. I'm sorry, please finish your thought.
but I think viewing this as a story. How does the story begin? The door opens and Mary's dress. So I think she has to, from a poetry point of view, she has to get in the car. And hopefully she's just not too pissed at Bruce for that. You're not a beauty, but you're all right.
So there is certainly a percentage of my female guests who say she doesn't for that very line. I always
Okay.
defend it as that Mary was someone who often talks about herself, saying she isn't very pretty. She puts herself down, and in the spirit
Huh.
of meeting a as a salesperson, pre-going a argument, is saying, "Hey, I know you're not that pretty." But you're, hey, all right, let's talk about it. That's because of my take. But
Yeah.
yes, my wife says he calls her ugly. Of course she doesn't get in the car. John, if
Yeah.
someone wants to reach you, go ahead, please,
Yeah, no, I have never thought of it that way before, but that is an interesting take on that. That he was taking her at her word,
and trying
and
to convince her
yeah,
otherwise. That's good.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So, John, if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
So let's see. Website is therealjohnhamilton.com. You can find me on Spotify just under my own name. I am not Big John Hamilton. You'll be able to tell because he is a African American blues singer, and obviously I am not an African American blues singer. And the book is available through Amazon. Just Honest to God by John Hamilton. A lot of music in there. A lot of music. So
Yes, I am.
uh,
I'm looking forward to finishing it. You may not be an African American blues singer. I am certainly not an African American presidential candidate, but we had a good conversation. John, this was a
oh,
blast. Let's do it again.
oh,
Let's do an Amy Grant
absolutely.
episode, okay?
Absolutely, Jesse. And you are good at this. You're one of those people who can stand on the stage with the other person who knows how to do this. So, yeah, very well
You're a
done.
great man. All right,
Yeah.
listeners, go check out the book, check out the website, check out his Spotify list. Everyone, please remember to be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.